next on the agenda, Washington State Growth Management Update Grant Acceptance.
Council members, some of you may be familiar with the grant that we were offered to apply for through Washington State to work on updating our comprehensive plan. The City of Pacific exists in 2 counties that are both mandated to have their own plans updated by 2015, and therefore we're in line and have plenty of work to do. What you have in your packet is the contract that was proposed by Commerce based on the application that I filled out with some of a few edits that I've agreed to as making sense. This contract has also gone to Association of Washington Cities, and they made a few comments on the insurance provisions, and Commerce has had some comments again in return. So those may appear in the document that I hope you'll forward to the next meeting. But basically, the state's contract is pretty much boilerplate, and they believe that they've addressed Association of Washington Cities' concerns in the body of the contract with regards to insurance coverage. So what I am requesting is that the City Council approve acceptance of the Washington Department of Commerce Growth Management Update Grant in the amount of $18,000, and that's from this point forward to the end of June 2015, the time period that we have to work on this grant. And in fact, if you do approve it, then the Planning Commission will set a public hearing at their next meeting next week for February in order to open up the discussion to the public about the objectives of the comp plan update. I hope that's not too complicated.
What exactly is the money being spent on? I mean, updating our plan outside of the Planning Commission, looking at it and making sure we're in compliance with the Growth Management Act.
A lot of that is staff time.
The staff time.
And there will be some work that we'll need contractors to review. In particular, our critical areas ordinance and our maps haven't been updated substantially since 1995. And we do want another entity with experience to review our transportation plan, which has not been updated since 2004. So those are things that we want some outside help with.
Is this a matching fund?
It's not a 50-50. The city, if you look into the budget, we've identified some funds that the city would provide towards this end. And I believe in this year, the calendar year ends in June. At the end of June, it would be about $4,000 of city money, which would basically mostly go into salaries.
I mean, well, my question was, is this grant contingent upon the city spending so much money?
No. This is just they're basically offering it. The state is basically offering it to many, if not all, jurisdictions as a way to help them get it done.
Okay.
And it's based on their size and population.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just curious, do we think there's any chance we'll have updated FEMA maps in time for this round of revision?
Oh, that's a good question. I know that, excuse me, that King County submitted updates to FEMA. It's got to be going on almost two years ago, and they were a little late in the cycle at that point in time and were held back. I'd be happy to contact them and see, if they've heard any further word. What we're doing at this point in time is, if you go on the King County's website, they are showing where they believe the floodplain to be, which does not match up with our flood maps. Haven't been substantially updated since 1980 or 85, so they're really not accurate. The King County, in fact, did a study in 2006, and then after the flood went back again and reassessed everything. So when we talk to project proponents, we say this is our current map, but this is what we know to be more accurate. And we strongly suggest you build to that. Yeah.
Anyone that's building that would be close to a critical area has to have an expert review anyway, don't they? For an environmental impact or something like that.
There are a couple different things. If it's wetlands, then they would need to have somebody come in and assess
Setbacks off the river.
But right now, we're held to our current maps, but we know they're not accurate. So.
After the last flood, we know that, and from the new mapping, we know that there are some properties that would probably be within the 100-year floodplain, but right now may not even be within the 500-year floodplain. So at the moment, if you just look at the FEMA map, they're a low-risk property with no flood implications at all. But we also know from what FEMA's done so far that within a few years, they could be required to have flood insurance on that property. They could be subject to the same building restrictions as the rest of the floodplain, and
Well, when you add 5 feet of riverbed.
yeah.
And that's a point that's made too, is the aspect of insurance and safety and what will happen down the line if you don't.
Has anybody ever seen where our silt and rocks are coming from? Have you ever gone upstream? The levee washed away, and gosh, we go up there and do a swiftwater training with the fire department, and you can just see where it's eroded across, and it's taken out, 4 to 7 feet of soils, it's sandy loam and rock soils, and this is what's being deposited, so, because the original levee is gone.
And to add to that, King County found out that the channel is narrower and faster in Auburn, and then it chunks down under the railroad tracks, and when it expands, it drops its load as well. So it's an unfortunate circumstance. They hope to take some pressure off of their left bank project, but it's not getting better on its own.
But it's easy to go upstream and just look. You're on tribal trust land, but you go up there and you look, it's just like, here's where the riverbed was, and it's over here, 800 feet, and all that soil came with it, and it's sitting in the riverbed all the way down to something.
Any other questions, comments?
Well, it's council's pleasure on that. Okay, next, fill out the podium, medical and recreational marijuana moratorium.
A very complex subject. The attachments that you received prior to this, were a draft proposed ordinance extending the moratorium on medical marijuana, processing, production, and dispensing, and instituting a moratorium on the same for recreational marijuana. We have since been made aware of an Attorney General's opinion on the subject, and the opinion is included in your packet, as well as the introduction into the House of 2 bills that also further complicate the subject. One of them being closing the loopholes proposal for cities to disallow these uses, and the other one proposing an incentive for cities, requesting that 30% of the 25% excise tax on recreational marijuana be given to cities and counties. Fourthly, the Association of Washington Cities, our current insurance company, has on contract a land use lawyer whose area of expertise is medical and recreational marijuana. And she's drafted a number of of ordinances for this, and she has weighed in and supplied us with a, I guess we call it an interim ordinance. There's a cover letter, it just arrived today. A draft interim zoning ordinance for recreational medical marijuana. And I think for the sake of brevity right now, we can go directly to the proposed ordinance from Carol Morris, the lawyer, the AWC supply lawyer. And the title reads, an ordinance of the City of Pacific, Washington relating to the recreational medical use of marijuana, adopting an interim zoning ordinance, prohibiting the siting, establishment, and operation of any structures, property, or uses related to recreational or medical marijuana, production, processing, cultivation, storage, sale, exchange, or bartering, to be in effect until the city adopts permanent zoning regulations on the same subject, which includes a prohibition on the submission of business license applications for such uses. This interim ordinance to be effective immediately, setting 6 months as the effective period of the interim zoning ordinance, and establishing the date of a public hearing on the interim zoning ordinance. So where this places us, and please feel free to weigh in, is that we have set a public hearing for February 3rd on, to take comment on a proposed moratorium extension and moratorium on recreational marijuana. And now we have in our possession another ordinance that effectively sets 6 months as a period for this interim zoning, which does not permit any of these activities in the City of Pacific. It's 14 pages, I believe, and it contains a work plan for the Planning Commission to happen, to take place during that period in time. That's in Section 3. And this will be forwarded to the Planning Commission if it's council's pleasure to pursue this line. So my understanding is that we do have this moratorium public hearing on the 3rd, and that after the public hearing, we can also consider the adoption of this ordinance in front of you. At this point in time, because we've had so little time to consider it, I suggest moving it forward to your next meeting.
Council discussion?
For the 2 businesses that are currently operating, does this affect them at all, or are they grandfathered in?
This doesn't have a city right going on.
Yes. I think the word grandfathered is
Not grandfathered.
yes, it's not the correct word. And I think that
That's what I do.
yes,
Yeah.
that
Status quo while the city considers the new ordinance.
and it's my understanding that the city attorney has been involved with someone else's attorneys and is probably the best person to ask about that. I receive information, by way of passage. I don't know what the truth is. So I think at the next meeting that we should ask Ken Luce to tell us what the status is of those businesses, and also his reaction to the ordinance as well.
Other council discussion? Is that forward?
Well, if we move it forward to the next meeting, it would be the first reading, and then we would move it forward to the 3rd for more discussion, and then move it forward to the special meeting on the 3rd, the one after that would be the second reading. I'll understand how that would work.
And I also noted there is in the proposed ordinance an emergency clause that would make it effective effective immediately, assuming that it's passed with a sufficient majority. If it's not passed with sufficient majority, then we would need to amend it to remove the emergency clause. Because it's a zoning change, normally there's, you can't have it effective immediately, but the attorney suggests putting in an emergency clause so that it would be effective immediately. But in order to impose that, you need a majority plus one of council, if I remember correctly. So if it only gets a majority and not a majority plus one, it can't take effect immediately. Okay, next item on the agenda, Wagner contract for Stewart Road Service. It's not in your packet, but is on the table.
Twice. This was brought up, we were just going through some stuff, and the environmental issues on Stewart Road weren't addressed. This is the finished jar fund, don't ask me what that stands for, but Paula might know. And we had already had a contract with Russ Wagner, but the contract expired. There is still $400 in the Stewart Road budget for this. In his contract, if you read it, I believe it comes to $11,000. We're not going to get it any cheaper with anybody else, but we have to do this in order to keep moving forward with Stewart Road.
Council discussion.
How much of this will be covered by our TID?
Should be all of this should be covered by TIB.
The grant is $6.
Yeah.
Any other council discussion?
Sounds like it's just part of the project.
What council pleasure?
So we'll move forward with it.
Okay, next on the agenda, new council committee on governance.
Yeah, the finance committee met, and one of the topics of discussion that was brought in was, the ordinance that was passed, taking the power to, away from the mayor to hire the city attorney and giving it to the council. So it was sent to the finance committee to discuss if we needed to change that, or determine if we want to seek out keep the power with the council, change it back to the way it was, and either way, look at, if we keep it the way it is, we want to look at other attorneys, but then when we started talking, it's not really a finance issue, it's more of a governance issue, so, and then we looked at some of the other things that we need to talk about and discuss, like, there's some issues that we deal with, like, there's months where we have 5 Mondays in the month, and so we end up adding an extra week before we meet to approve payroll, and that can create an issue. And the way our ordinance is written, we have to give that approval, and so we have to look at some of our ordinances and modify them and change them. And then we've got some ordinances on the books that might be outdated, and having a committee like this here might give us a chance to look at ordinances, have people get educated on them from the council, then bring them to the council for discussion, and then action at a council meeting. And so by creating a new governance committee and calling it that, that's what it's dealing with, is, dealing with the business of the council and reviewing our ordinances, determining which ones are outdated, need to be changed, modified, improved, retired, whatever terminology we deem necessary at the time, and whenever we want to enact new legislation, having that committee review it, determine the legality of it, and then bring it back to the council at a workshop for discussion, and then moving it for action.
I just have a question. Would this committee also address, like, the job descriptions and stuff? I know we've been sending like a finance committee or different committees for the different job descriptions so that we have updated in our employee handbooks and procedures.
No, that's what probably fall under the city's business of the city and the mayor and the executive branch, because the employees work for the mayor, and the council just provides direction, and through ordinance, we're providing direction, and that just gives just a focus on the
Well, because the council's always approved job descriptions in the past, so I was curious, or works on changing job descriptions.
our code does currently require us to have approved job descriptions before hiring for a number of positions, so, but I don't know if that would necessarily go to the governance committee, or if, say, public works job descriptions would go to public works, the finance
As
job
we've been
descriptions would
doing
go to
it.
finance.
Yeah.
It seems a more specialized area than governance in general.
Okay.
I would think the governance committee could look at whether we need as much council involvement in the approval of job descriptions as we currently have overall.
Yeah.
That's a policy.
That was the intent of the discussion.
Other issues also, we had a number of blind spots and potential conflicts in the code identified over the last 2 years, where there were radically different interpretations depending on which piece of code you looked at. So that's something where, again, we really should take a comprehensive look at the code overall and find some of these. Is a particular position at will or contract or public service? What is it? Civil service? So there are a number of issues in code that have already been identified that are conflicting. So some committee that was actually their position to review governance rather than the mechanics of a particular area.
Yeah.
How often would this committee meet?
As needed.
Yes, there is as yet no, I assume the committee
No
itself would
committee
have,
yet,
yes, the
yeah.
committee would have to meet and establish its priorities and job schedule. Any further discussion? Council pleasure?
So, because it's forming a committee, is this something that has to go to council for a formal resolution or vote, or can we just establish it now? Can we just make a motion now to establish?
No, you can't make a
Yeah,
motion,
yeah.
can't make a motion in workshop.
Okay.
You would need to modify the council rules, because all our committees are outlined in the council rules, and then we would adopt those.
So, would you want to see, just amend the council rules at like the next meeting, or do you want to see an amendment to the council rules go to a workshop and then brought forward, or does council want to see that happen?
I'd like to see this committee established as soon as possible.
Sure.
I'd like to
Yeah,
see.
as an ad hoc committee, I think we can establish it with a simple motion. If we wanted to make it a permanent standing committee, then we could go into the rules and develop a more detailed description for it once it's been standing long enough to figure out what it's doing.
Some land use rules that are in, or land use ordinances that are in conflict with each other. And
Yeah.
different need to be upgraded.
Okay, so I guess move that forward to next meeting.
Committee formed at the next meeting.
Item 8, Auburn Farmers Market Representative.
So my term expired December 31st of last year, I found out. So the city of Pacific has a position on that board. The meetings, they're not set. I did get a schedule, I think Amy sent it out. They're typically 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. I think they meet about once a month up until when the market starts, and then kind of towards the end of the year. They don't meet a whole lot during the summer. And the Auburn council member is asking for our name so he can submit it to council for approval. The mayor is appointing the council approves. Is anyone else interested? You guys start there. I didn't want to just give him my name. I don't mind doing it.
I'm interested, but the timing is bad. My boss would not like me asking for, get off early on a Friday.
Yeah.
I really would, okay.
The first meeting, well, the next meeting is this Friday.
So, and I guess, just to clarify why I would choose Trent, he started last year, and I think was only on it for like 6 months maybe?
Yeah.
And, just to get started, but also Ken's very familiar with the farmer's market and was kind of actively involved.
And I was on the steering committee originally during the formation.
I just think he's a good choice.
Yeah.
Keep him on that committee.
Thank you, Shane.
And for some reason, Bill Pelosi likes him.
I can't figure out why.
Okay, so council pleasure? Move that forward with we need to formally adopt that, or do you?
I think I submit my name and they just appoint me.
With council's consensus, if you're okay
I'm,
with it, yeah.
I'm not opposed to it.
Okay, item I, Stewart Road budget update. Might even be done in time for a special meeting.
You got 5 minutes, Ken.
I don't think it'll take that long.
All right, here's pretty.
And I can talk as I'm walking too. We have received our final, design and specs for Stewart Road from Phillips Design. We're in the middle of reviewing those right now. We have had, Ted Hill actually helped us out reviewing them too. He had some comments on those, so, all we're waiting for now is some stuff back from P.C.S and the Gordon Trucking Agreement and stuff, which is one for, we're having a hearing next Monday on that, so. This is where we're at on the budget for Stewart Road. It gives you that we're a little bit short on funds. We're a lot better than we were. And TIB still is saying that they will come up with 10% if we need it.
So, didn't we have a public works on that too?
We do, we do that on here.
I don't see it on here.
Oh, well, we're not short then.
How much was the public works?
330,000.
I thought.
So we're actually, we have a surplus.
No action required from council on this?
No action required, just an FYI.
There being no further business